The Treasure Goblin is a mischievous demon, taking advantage of weary or inattentive adventurers and merchants, before disappearing through golden portals with a ridicule and giggle. The Treasure Goblin debuted in Diablo 3, where the Nephilim would occasionally encounter them, chasing the wiry gremlin to reclaim the stolen treasure. They are not violent, instead choosing to run away from threats, using gold or gems to distract their pursuers, scuttling between other groups of demons to buy them enough time to open a portal to Greed's realm, where they can escape. The frail demon is normally a greyish blue colour, but the sheer amount of gold, jewels and enchanted items casts a golden glow about them, making them stand out even in the darkest of dungeons. Today I reveal some old footage of a Treasure Goblin miniature where I practice using OSL, or Object Source Lighting, reflecting the golden glow that warms the face of this malicious goblin. This is a follow-up from my previous OSL video where I painted the base for this miniature. I use a variety of layers using translucent colours and a high contrast palette to show the heavy shadows where the light can no longer reach. This is Cursed Crusader Arts. To remain true to the original design, we can start by painting the fabrics of the sash, patch and the coif with Wraithbone to enhance the vibrant red colours we will use on it later. Next, we can add our first layer of Thunderhawk blue to the skin. This will help us build up the natural blue greys of the goblin's skin before we add in the OSL effects later. Next is a sack full of the goblin's ill-gotten gains from enchanted swords and mystical staffs to the unusually rusty spoons in the back of your drawer. I imagine this sack being Hessian or burlap, so we can mix a 1:1 ratio of Gorthal brown and Deathguard green. Although the colour is bright, we will darken this down later with washes to ensure that it ties in with the rest of the miniature without being too intrusive to the eye. Next, we will apply Mephiston red to the white fabrics we painted earlier. These paints will be vibrant and help to break up all the browns. Once this is done, we should be ready to apply a solid layer of Gorthal brown to the sack, covering all of the raised areas except where the edges meet other fabrics, as this is where the shadow will become more intense. In order to create the OSL effects, we need to consider how light and shadows work, while selecting colours that make sense. We know that the gold on the base is casting a yellow light from below, so we need to make sure that our light colours are painted onto the bottom of the muscles and fade as we travel further away from the light source. To try and do this, I chose to make a layer for the skin mixing a 2:1 mix of Xandri dust and Eshin grey. This faded colour has elements of yellow, brown and green that will enhance the skin that was previously painted blue. As we progress, we can add more yellows, intensifying the glow of the treasure by making the contrast between light and shadow more exaggerated. For our washes, we must restrain ourselves from using the beloved Agrax Earthshade or the dreaded Nuln Oil, as we don't want to swallow up all of the light we have created. Reikland Flesh will act as our dark shade, as its red pigment will be suited to dark shadows, particularly for the sack that is red and brown. Seraphim Sepia will be our light shade. Its yellow pigments will satisfy our needs to push the colours back whilst keeping the bright yellows that we have worked so hard to build up. With the washes all dry, I was feeling pretty proud of myself, until I noticed a terrible mistake.
What have I done?
Don't panic, the paint is fine. As it turns out, I was looking at the miniature and I realised that I'd glued it into the wrong position. In its current state, the light would have shone across the whole face and body of our Treasure Goblin. However, the point was to create high contrast from one side of the face to the other. Thankfully, this only required some repositioning, so I carefully removed the goblin from his base and removed the excess glue, paint and resin, and then repainted it so that my mistake would be harder to find. With my crime against miniatures successfully concealed from the world, I repositioned goblins so that the OSL effect looked much more realistic in relation to the pile of treasure on the base. Here we can allow ourselves to fall for the illusion of the faded light on the backside of the face as it fades into greens and then blues. At this stage I realised that I wanted the OSL effects to be very strong, as the goblin is stood almost on top of the gold. We can do this by reinforcing the shadows to increase the contrast between light and shadow. We can choose either Drakenhof Nightshade or Celia Greenshade, depending on whether you want cold or warm shadows. Following this mindset, I dry brush some Wraithbone on the highest points of the sack, glazing it with Bad Moon Yellow. This gives the indication that the goblin's ill-gotten gains are glowing so strongly that we can see it from the inside. This also adds a visual bonus, encouraging the viewer to look at all the different angles of the miniature. After this, we can finally add a wash of Agrax Earthshade over all of the fabrics, pushing back the bright colours. This also helps to ensure that there are only two predominant sources of light, being the gold on the floor and the other gold leaking out of the top of the sack. At this stage, it's just a case of cleaning up the details. I decided to paint the metallic trinkets such as the bracelet and coins in a bronze colour. This adds a connection to all of the gold while still being different enough to draw interest. I also used washes to enhance the shadows that I thought needed to be more extreme so that they would stand out. Overall, this was a great little exercise, and mostly successful for a first try at object source lighting. The miniature in this video was produced by Bite the Bullet Studio, and I'll leave a link for the miniature in the description below. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more. And if you have any tips about object source lighting, leave it in the comments below, and I'll see you next time on Cursed Crusader Arts.